All
Hola,
right,
Hispanic
welcome,
Patriots.
welcome, Hispanic Patriot Podcast aficionados and fans. Today we have a another interview with Colorado GOP chairman's race candidate, Mr. Jeremy Goodall, will be joining us here momentarily. So we want to give a brief intro about Mr. Goodall. So Jeremy has nearly 20 years of service expanding the grassroots of Colorado Republican politics. He has faithfully contributed his expertise to benefit state and local candidates and the Republican Party at the county, state, and national levels. For years, he has engaged tens of thousands of voters each election cycle during his time as a senior strategy consultant and campaign manager for various Colorado and national level political campaigns. He is successful management of several 150 plus headcount workforces has placed over 2 dozen amendments on the Colorado ballot. Jeremy received the endorsement of the Trump campaign and was elected national delegate to the 2024 RNC in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He has been or currently is a precinct leader, bonus member, congressional district chair, and was elected to the state executive committee. Across Colorado, he has personally recruited dozens of Senate district and House district officers, bonus members, precinct leaders, and candidates for public office. As former chair of the El Paso County Bylaws Committee, he is still continually called on to help with questions and issues on county and district bylaws, as well as state statute issues. He is a founding board member of Protect Kids Colorado, advising and assisting in their ongoing battle to keep men and boys out of women and girls' sports, locker rooms, and bathrooms. Jeremy is the president of an award-winning event and video production company. Using these talents, he has volunteered his personal services to produce commercials for Republican candidates and pro-family and pro-life initiatives. He is also the founder of a space technology company and has been involved as a manager or consultant with numerous other commercial and technical startups, assisting directly in the raising of hundreds of thousands of dollars. He holds a degree in economics with a specialty in global economic policy from the Bryan School of Business and UNC Greensboro. Jeremy and his wife, Melissa Goodall, have recently welcomed their 10th grandchild. And now, without further ado, we bring in Mr. Jeremy Goodall, candidate for chair of the Colorado GOP. Jeremy, welcome to the Hispanic Patriot
Yes, welcome.
podcast. Thank you for
Welcome.
taking
Hi,
this
how are you?
time to be with us, and we want to get right to it. We have interviewed several other candidates for this position. We have one or two others coming up for the vice chair next week, and we wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to the audience and talk about your campaign for chair. So please introduce yourself to the audience and give a brief background of why you want this job.
Well, so I am Jeremy Goodall. I am pretty much the opt-out candidate. If you're members of the Central Committee, you understand what that vote is about. Several years ago, we were pushed into an open primary by Democrat superfunder Ken Theory. And they pushed that in as a party. We didn't have a choice. That they changed the law, and so we have now been basically organizationally captured.
Unconstitutionally, I might add.
Unconstitutionally, yes, but within that law, there is the requirement that we give our consent to having been captured, and that is how they actually hang it on the give it the fig leaf of legality under the Constitution. Because they didn't have that when they ran the same stuff in California. And when they did that in California, it was basically rolled back because they didn't include the ability to get out. And so my position is we've been under Democrat occupation long enough. It's time to get out. It seems pretty simple. However, in the Central Committee, that seems to be fairly controversial. Last year, in April of last year, down at the Pueblo Assembly and Convention, 95% of the body stood up in support of opting out. You want unity in this party, you got to start listening when the body's unified. And so my position is we must opt out. And actually, I'll point out that there's my campaign button. And you'll notice that opt out is bigger than my name. Oh, yeah. Okay, there we go now.
Wanted to make sure everyone read that because that is a very special button right there.
Yep.
Yeah, and you'll notice that opt out is bigger than my name. Like my name's not very big. Opt out's really big because it's a life or death matter for our party. And if the party goes down, we all go down.
Yep.
That is a rather unique position, Jeremy, for all the people we have interviewed. Very, very strong and pointed.
Well, I'm fairly strong.
What else
You'll
would
need
you
to
like
be for this job. Please, Hugo.
What else would you like the audience to know about your candidacy and why you seek this position?
Well, as I've examined this position and as I've examined the other folks that have gotten in it, like there's basically a couple of things that do stand apart from myself and them. The opt-out position is, of course, the most obvious, but a slightly more subtle difference is that I am not a politician. I've never run for public office. I've never held public office. I don't want to hold public office. I merely want to get the party healthy enough to get new people into offices so that we can take Colorado from being this purple monstrosity to an actual red state again.
Lofty goals, my friend. There you go.
Absolutely. All right. So, as most people are looking at the candidates, obviously this is a Central Committee vote that will be coming up, of which I am a member as Vice Chair of Denver GOP. What people are looking for are things like, what are your qualifications for the position of chairman of the GOP, Colorado GOP, and what distinguishes you from the other candidates?
Well, I've been a member of this party, the Colorado Party, since 2006. That was when I first became a precinct leader here in El Paso County. Since that time, I've worked with the 912s, the Tea Party movements. I have been grassroots the entire time. I have been on the right side of every issue and every candidate in recent memory. I would say the fact that my involvement in politics has never been from a top down, but rather I cut my teeth doing petition gathering and ballot signature work. That's where the guys are standing out there. Hi, you're registered to vote. Would you like to put this on the ballot so the people of Colorado can vote on it? On virtually all sorts of issues. Always conservative issues, fortunately. I was good enough at the job that I could pick and choose. But through that, I shook, like the first issue I ever worked was the Right to Work Initiative, an anti-union measure. And in 3 months, I personally was credited with 14,784 signatures. I know how to shake hands, present the idea, and get people to go, oh, and understand and support the idea. Like that's just what it is. And that's all this politics and all this political party is bringing people, educating them, and showing them how to access power, how to access the controls of this party, how to make their voice heard. In El Paso County, there are dozens of precinct leaders who are precinct leaders because they asked me, hey, how do I get involved? With Vicki Tompkins, when she took over several years ago, the precinct fill rate in El Paso County was 35%. It had eroded to that and been held there for quite some time because the folks that were in control of the party wanted it small. They wanted the Central Committee small. They wanted the voters large. They wanted the control apparatus small because that's easier to keep in their hands and keep in their pocket.
Okay.
Under Vicki Tompkins, we actually managed to recruit and bring on enough people that we went from 35% fill rate to at its peak, we were at 85%.
All right.
Those are filling seats right there.
Nick, you got a question for Jeremy?
I do have a question for you, Jeremy, and actually quite it talks a little bit about what you just mentioned, because I think we can all agree that a big reason for the push for more involvement is because we have such a contentious party, and as a result, we have a very contentious party race. So, Jeremy, what I'd like to ask you is, what are your top 3 priorities for getting elected to this position? What are your top 3 priorities if you win?
If elected.
My top 3
if elected,
priorities.
there you go.
Oh, yeah. If elected, one is the restoration of health. There is tremendous dysfunction in this party. That dysfunction is, in my opinion, it's an outgrowth of a process that has been corrupted. Solid principles, people that won't compromise their values, cannot coexist with rampant corruption. That's just not going to work. Amos 3:3, kind of an obscure Bible verse, but it says, how can even 2 men walk together unless they be in agreement? That's just simple. That's just simple wisdom. So we have to get the dysfunction under control. That requires leading by example. My background, I'm actually a pastor's kid. My father's a PhD in counseling and all of that. He's a tremendously respected minister. And churches, by and large, that we would move to were like they had run their pastor off because of the dysfunction in their churches. And so every time we took over a church, we had to heal the body before we could do anything. And as you began healing the relationships, the fights, the arguments, all of that, a strange thing would begin happening. Actually, not that strange if you really think about it. People would start coming on Sunday. People would start coming and participating. We saw tremendous growth in our churches. And when I say tremendous, I'm talking our last church, we averaged 100% year-on-year growth. We started at like 750. Next year we were at 1,500. Next year we were at almost 3,000.
And Jeremy, I just wanted a quick question. So, what year was this? What years were this?
Oh, this was back in 2000.
Crisis of faith around that time. So you grew these churches at a time where people are leaving churches faster than anything.
Oh yeah, but they wanted to find healthy churches, and our church was probably one of the healthier ones in the area. So that's where they came. But
so as a segue to what you were just saying, if you're elected or one of the other grassroots candidates are elected, I've asked this question: how would you manage the opposition segment of the party? Because personally, I don't see them going away. I think they're gonna, once they lose, and I believe they will lose this election, I believe they're going to double down and continue attacking Colorado GOP leadership. So how would you manage that going forward with regards to that segment of the party that that basically is, I guess, for better terms, hell bent on destroying this party?
Well, there's a pretty simple model, and it is also biblical. First, you go to your offending brother privately. If they persist in their sin and they persist in their misbehavior and their offense, you then go with a few witnesses, again privately. If they again refuse to correct, you go before the body of the church, which in this case would be probably the central committees and that sort of thing. If they still refuse to correct, the Bible is really clear. You are to set them aside and have nothing further to do with them.
Okay. Unfortunately, in the state party, there's no mechanism by which you can purge or remove someone from being in the party. So what would you do either publicly? Let's say the private part doesn't work. What would then be your way of managing it publicly as you move forward with the management of the state party?
Well, once they refuse the body's motion, you're basically stuck with legal issues. Like you're stuck with legal venues. Like we're not allowed to stone them anymore. I mean that's just right out. But
how many things we lost from the ancient world?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm fingers crossed that Trump's gonna find this podcast and go, hey, that's a great idea.
So anyone watching with an ear to Trump, you know what to do.
Stonings, that would be.
I think Trump has a few people on his list. He'd like for that.
I think so. But
given that we're not in the Stone Ages, yes. So what would you do in that public setting?
Well, that's the thing is at that point you basically have to resort to either public shaming, legal ramifications. But if you've done the proper steps first, you've set the groundwork and you've built the relationships with the other folks to basically say this isn't. And I think that's been the problem is the contentions and stuff have skipped that first and second step. They've jumped right to let's throw everybody off the thing, and we're not going to hear anybody out because that's their side and our side is. And I actually said this in Elbert County last night. They asked us to describe the different factions within the party. They said, well, and how would you deal with them? Well, I took a very strong position, as you can well imagine. And my position was, as Ulysses S. Grant, the second Republican president, said, there are but two parties now, patriots and traitors. You're either wanting to create solution, you're either wanting to see America rise again, you're either wanting to see our party move forward, or you're not. And your actions will display that very clearly. When your actions don't align with your words, I believe your actions. That's just how I am. I don't care for flowery rhetoric. I don't care for small talk and pleasantries. We are in a position now where we are under enemy occupation, and we cannot operate as though politeness is a virtue. Nicety is a virtue. In fact, if you look up the original version of the original vocabulary definition of nice, it's not complimentary.
It's true.
When they say that someone's a nice girl, they mean she's mentally stupid. Like that's what it originally meant. And everyone was like, "Oh, he called her nice. That's so nice." Well, niceties. We're beyond niceties. This is a matter of life and death. The opt-out vote is a prime example. The restoring of health. We don't have time to let people vent their toxicity into the body. If you're going to be unuseful, if you're going to be actively destructive, you need to be shut down.
Yep, I agree. Now, we've discussed kind of on the outskirts the opt-out lawsuit. There's another lawsuit that's pending right now against, if I'm not mistaken, 3 individuals who participated in the failed coup attempt last summer, and that lawsuit has the goal of recouping lost resources, meaning funds, from people who caused the state party to expend funds that were needed to defend the party against the illegal attempt to overtake the party. So, being on the chair position, we already know where you stand on the opt-out lawsuit, so that's going to continue. Are you in favor of continuing the lawsuit against the 3 individuals that were named in that litigation?
Actually, yes, I am. I am in favor of that.
Okay.
They may not have gotten the full private talking to, and then the full biblical process, but their persistence to this level, I think, has drawn the requirements. The party has spoken, the courts have actually spoken, and now they're continuing to tell the courts they're wrong.
Yep.
Not a good strategy.
Sounds like Democrats to me.
Yeah, this is, but I in my own life, my own work history, I am no stranger to court cases. In fact, getting Doug Lamborn back onto the ballot when he was removed by I think it was Owen Hill in the congressional race there. The federal case that actually brought Lamborn back onto the ballot is not Lamborn v. State of Colorado. That's Goodall v. State of Colorado.
Oh.
That's the federal citation.
Okay.
So I'm batting 1,000 in federal court,
Right.
like already. And then I also, through my petitioning efforts, I'm fairly certain there are very few candidates who actually have been criminally cited for First Amendment activities.
All right.
Oh,
I was actually given a Walmart for collecting signatures.
foot in the trenches right there.
See, there's different factions of the party. There are the activists. Those are people who are participating in one form or another with the party, being a PCP, a district captain, or an elected county officer, bonus member, etc. Then there are those that are involved by voting, and they vote according to their values and principles. But the overall misunderstanding, if you will, by so many people, to me, is that they don't understand the hierarchy and or the mechanics of the party. And that starts at the caucus level, and it goes on up through the assembly level and to the central committee. So you hear a lot of people spewing about how you're going to disenfranchise Republican voters in primaries, et cetera, if you close the primary or if you opt out. And but nobody ever talks about what the participation level is in those primary elections. And when it comes to Republican registration or registered Republicans in primaries, the participation level is below pathetic. Okay.
Proper way to put it.
And so, and so what I say to the powers that be, the state party needs to have a better strategy on, number one, educating the actual electorate, meaning all those registered Republicans and potential unaffiliated who should be Republicans, but for one reason or another have decided to opt out of the party. Personally, my position is if somebody drops out of the party, I'm sorry, but you decided to drop out of the party. We didn't push you out of the party. So this nonsense about, well, I didn't leave the party left me, that's baloney. That's just an excuse to not own up for what they made a conscious decision to do, which is to unaffiliate. And then they want to come back in and tell the party how to run their business. So I say all that to say this. What kind of game plan would you have as chairman to educate the electorate in Colorado to help them understand how the party functions and why it's important for them as either voters or activists to participate at whatever level they decide they want to participate? How would you try to achieve that?
Well, I would say there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. Donald Trump's already shown us the model for how to get out and educate and activate and bring in new voters. And that's a full court press, podcast appearances, video platforms, shows like this one that are reaching out. This is how we do it. But I would also say that your model of the factions within our party is incomplete. You're forgetting the donors, you're forgetting the elected officials, and you're forgetting the consultant class that interfaces those guys with the party. And what's happened is there's no vetting on the donors. None. We've got donors, we've got people coming in throwing money in that are ostensibly like unaffiliated independent groups. Well, if you bother to look at their board of directors, which are on their websites, and you put those guys into the Tracer or the SEC websites, they don't have any Republican donations, ever. Yeah. Not one. They'll have one guy on the board who is registered Republican, but that's the first one I check, and all of their donations go to Democrat causes. Act Blue shows up like crazy, just blows up. These are folks that are manipulating the very basic requirements, like in Colorado, to become a Republican. You go to the DMV and you check Republican. Yep. If Bernie Sanders were to just decide to move from Vermont, move to Colorado, and decide to run for office in El Paso County, well, as a Democrat, he's not getting past base one. He's not even getting a base hit. So he just checks Republican, and somehow by our bylaws and the rigid interpretations that are being imposed by certain groups, we as officers and bonus members and stuff are obligated to not say, hey, remember, that's Bernie Sanders, the commie. Mm-hmm. That would be, because he checked a mark.
Right.
That's
Republicans got to be more than a mark check.
To your point, there are groups. There are ancillary groups like Advanced Colorado and Unite Colorado and some of these other really good sounding groups that people want to jump on board with without one second thought about, number one, what the agenda is, and number two, who the people involved are. And that goes to
right now. I know this from ministry because people seek to appropriate churches via gifts. And some money is too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Some money is too expensive.
Sometimes the money's too expensive.
It's very true.
All right. So we're up against the clock. So what I want you to do is give us a quick closing statements asking for the vote from the Central Committee, and the floor is yours. Go ahead.
So I want to thank you all for joining us here today. I hope you've heard some things that may have been eye-opening or at least ear-opening. My belief is that God is not done with Colorado. I believe God wants to